Welcome to Bookends of Recovery. I hope you're doing great. Thank you so much for being here. Today we've got a big episode because we're going to talk about steps after a setback. I say it's big because we're going to cover a lot of areas, mostly because I want to make sure that you guys have all the tools you need for after a setback happens, because I know that after a setback happens, we feel so vulnerable and things feel so overwhelming. So it may feel like a lot, but it's just because there's just so many options that you can take after a setback happens. So don't feel like you have to do everything in this podcast. These are just some of the things that you can keep in mind when a setback happens. And I know I've said it before, and I will say it again, that for most people, setbacks are a part of the recovery journey. And this is whether you are in the healing journey or the addiction journey. This is just, the way it is. Like I've mentioned before, there's only been one person, that hero I've mentioned before, that did not have a setback. And I think, mine was, my husband, my first husband, my current husband, and me, setbacks. Everyone I've worked with, setbacks. So it's just, it's how we learn and grow. And it's what we do after that's important. We pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and we learn from them. We don't want to wrap ourselves up in a blanket of shame, right? We want to focus on the steps to take after versus the setback itself. Before I get too deep, I want to share a goal that I have that will hopefully be the betterment for you. And that is that I'm going to try to learn how to get a better quality of recordings for you. I saw on Reddit that the way that I'm recording is not all that great for you guys. I do it on my iPhone because the platform that I'm using now on Podbean, the audio that I get on my Mac does not convert. So I have to figure out how to get it better for you. So I'm going to be working on that. Just bear with me while I try. So hopefully in the next few weeks I can get that accomplished. Okay. Now, so like I said, just bear with me. It seems like a lot, but I'm going to be covering a lot of ground. So we want to make sure that we recognize that a setback happened. No justifications. No more living in a world of denial and lies. We just want to acknowledge that the setback occurred, and then we choose acceptance, right? Because I know that I would justify and lie, and we don't want to do that. And then we move, after we've accepted that it happened, we move into a no shame zone. And by that, I mean, we don't want to wallow. And I love to share Brene Brown's view on this because she says, shame is I am bad, and guilt is I did something bad. And I love that approach because I know that I used to feel shame. I mean, my mother raised me, and all the time she would tell me I was a selfish bitch, just constantly. And so I grew up thinking that. And obviously I'm not. I didn't know that for a long time, but anytime I did something wrong, that was the first thing I thought. So, you are not terrible. You are not a horrible person. You had a setback. Your setback, nor your disease, defines you. The progress that you achieved, whether you had 60 days or 6 days, it's still there. Everything you learned, the tools that you put in your recovery toolkit, it's still there. No one wiped your mind, didn't zap it out of there, no one can take that away from you. So please give yourself grace without minimizing what happened. Okay, your addiction is a disease. And if you're someone who is listening as a family member, it is a family disease. And if you're someone who came over from reading or hearing on another podcast, especially if this is about pornography or sex and love addiction, I understand that can be a very challenging disease to face. And I encourage you to go visit Fight the New Drug. They're a great resource, along with Fortify is another great one. But remember, and so I'm a big fan of of stand-up comedy. As I get older, I get a little bit more picky, but one of my favorite sayings is from Mitch Hedberg, who's a stand-up comedian. Unfortunately, he was also an addict and passed away from an overdose. Rest in peace. But he said on, oh gosh, can I remember it? I think it was Dr. Katz was a skit that he was in, and it's I hope I get this right, but it was alcoholism is a disease, but it's the only disease you can get yelled at for having. And then the other part of it was, Oliver, you have lupus, damn it, or something like that. And I understand it seems disheartening as a sentiment, but it shows that for many, addiction is still misunderstood. But just remember that with each passing day, it gets better. There's more resources out there. There's more help available. Like I said, especially if you're over here because of those disease or those addictions, it's a lot more people are out there. There are CSATs, so just poke around my website and you'll see the resources. And I also have a new page out on my website. It's called the Resource Hub, so check that out. So after your setback, you've accepted it. You've said, okay, I'm not going to feel ashamed, but now it's time for me to do some work. I need to figure out why the setback happened. And we do this by understanding your triggers. You need to know how to manage them. So you got to figure out what needs to be changed in order to avoid being triggered in the future. And this is where you have got to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, who you were with, where you were, and what you were feeling. This is the time to really dig deep and evaluate. And this is going deeper than the normal, halted and blast. And if you're not familiar with that, then halt is hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Blast is bored, lonely, angry, stressed, and tired. Because when we're feeling any of those things, we can be more susceptible to our triggers. And so, knowing when we're feeling those things and then addressing them can kind of help us stay ahead of our triggers. But we need to know what we were dealing with. And then knowing how to identify and manage our triggers, of course, is an important part of our journey. So you have to know what your triggers are, how to manage them, and how, if possible, to avoid them. So looking back through your day, maybe it happened earlier and you may have either brushed it off, swept it under the rug, locked it behind a door like I used to do. I would just mentally shove things down, and I used to be proud of it. I'd be like, I can handle that, lock it behind a door in my head. And then, of course, what happens? Anytime that feeling of uncomfortableness would pop up, I would just numb it. which is so unhealthy. So sometimes it does take, when you're looking back on it and evaluating it, you might have to feel a little bit of uncomfortableness to work through it, but that's what it takes when you're digging deep and evaluating. So it may take taking out a piece of paper, writing things down, you know, and looking at, was it somebody you were around, or was it where you were, or was it something you were feeling throughout the day, and then, don't forget that when you're thinking about your triggers, sometimes there are feelings that your body was trying to tell you, whether it's maybe feelings of wanting to withdraw or negative self-talk. I mean, your body may have been trembling, or your heart may have been racing, your jaws may have been clenching. Jaws, you only have one jaw, may have been clenching. Um, but it could have been something you had started to maybe go, um, like, I don't know, people you acted out with and you knew they weren't healthy, just apps that you shouldn't have been on, whatever it may be. Just keep those things in mind. Um, and then, be honest with yourself and ask yourself if you were doing something that you thought you could handle when you couldn't. I'll give you an example. When I had been clean, I would say a year and a half. It was actually closer to 2 years, but whatever. Um, and someone came to visit us, and I was like, it's been almost 2 years. I can handle this. It's not cocaine. It's just meth. I'll be fine. It's only one line. I'll be okay. And then I was like, it's been like 45 minutes. I'm just going to do another line. I'll be okay. And of course, I was not okay. It went into a full-blown relapse. And so, what was I doing? I was rationalizing, I was justifying, and I relapsed after almost 2 years. So, were you telling yourself, it's just one drink, it's going to be okay, one line, it's okay? Or maybe you thought, you deserved it because everyone else is doing it. Why can't you? Or I haven't done it for so long. I'm going to be okay. I can totally handle this. You know, maybe you felt justified because, if you're the partner of, somebody who's struggling, well, they hurt me. Now it's my turn. Whatever your reason is, drill down on it and be honest with yourself. The next thing you want to do is reach out. The opposite of addiction is connection. So if you have, you're coming off the heels of a setback, reach out to your support team. Ask yourself, who makes up your sobriety circle? This can be anyone from a counselor, your life coach, your sponsor, a trusted friend. You can go to a support group or a 12-step meeting. If you don't have somebody like your go-to person, now is a great time to find one, because you want to be able to reach out to somebody. And it would be better if you could reach out to somebody before you have a setback, because when you're on that slippery slope. So being able to reach out to somebody beforehand would be ideal. But the important thing is to connect with someone as soon as possible, because that'll keep you from spiraling into those negative thoughts of, I am worthless. And you're not. You've just had a setback. We're going to learn and grow. And if you're in a relationship with someone, remember, your partner cannot be your accountability partner. It's not fair to put that onto them. They're already struggling with enough being in a relationship with somebody who is struggling with addiction. So please don't put that on them. It's best if you have three separate recoveries. So it would be your recovery, their recovery and healing, and then your relationship. I call that the concept of us. If you want to look that up, it is on my blog. I think I've mentioned it in the podcast, but now I'm getting to the point where I just don't remember. I'm sorry. um, if you're the loved one of someone struggling, you can also create your own healing hive. Uh, these are people that you get to lean on, just like your partner. Um, Again, it can be a support group, a trusted friend. You can also find 12-step meetings to attend. It's anyone who can understand what you're going through. But please, since I've been on both sides of this, as the addict and as the partner of an addict, I implore you not to do this alone. I tried and was unsuccessful. Made myself miserable. If there was if you looked up in the dictionary, God, again, I'm sounding old. I can't upload a thing on audio, blah, blah, blah. Open up the dictionary a little bit. Okay. If you open up the internet. Anyway, on how to do it wrong, that was me. You couldn't be more wrong than me. I did everything wrong. I tried to do it alone. Then I wouldn't go back to a meeting because somebody said something that hurt my feelings. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I did everything wrong. Please don't do that. Please find somebody to do this with you. Every mistake you can make, I made. It doesn't have to be me. I'm not saying, come to me, I'm the expert. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is do not do this alone. I may not be your cup of tea. And a lot of people, are like, wow, she's, too blunt, or she thinks this is a joke. I don't think it's a joke. I just know that trying to recover or trying to heal is not a solo journey. You have got to find someone to do it with you. Okay. Stepping off my soapbox. You should have a setback prevention plan. This is super important. Why is it important? Because this is basically what it sounds like. If you don't have one, implement one. I am actually working on getting a free one up on my website so that you can have something to go to download. But basically, all it is having grounding techniques in place. It's almost like having your recovery healing kit, but in a formatted way. So you're going to have a list of all of your favorite grounding techniques, your three circles, your boundaries, all of your things. And you don't have to go by the one that I will have put up for you. You can ask someone either in your sobriety circle or your healing hive to help you, but I will have one put up for you within probably the next couple of weeks, and I'll also do a blog post and a podcast on it because it's too long to talk about in this one section. But if you have not heard of one, I'll have that out there for you. But because I mentioned the inner circles, that is something that you definitely need to look at, because this is where a lot of times we kind of misstep. And I will go over that real fast. It is on my blog. And I know I keep mentioning my blog a lot, but I'm only doing that so that you know that as I throw things out there, you're not missing information. So it actually, the SLA community actually came up with this, and then uh, other 12 steps came up with it. And now a whole bunch of recovery programs use it because it's a really cool technique that we can use to kind of identify um, unhealthy behaviors. And so what we do is there's three circles, right? The inner, the middle, and the outer. So in the inner circle is where we put behaviors that we want to abstain from, whether you are the addict or you're healing, doesn't matter. And so you just put things in there that you would consider a loss in your sobriety or your healing, right? So we call these our bottom line behaviors. And in the middle, you put things that you would think are your like kind of boundary behaviors. These are things that would lead to a setback or things that you're just not sure about, that's kind of like that gray area. And then in the outer circle, you would put healthy behaviors, things that enhance your life and your recovery. And so I'm going to use me as an example because typically the inner circle and outer circle are super easy to define. And then the middle circle gets a little gray. So for me, I'm going to do it super fast. I might have something like, cocaine and meth. And then in the outer circle, I would have like meetings and group and volunteering. But then in the middle, this is where the gray comes in. And it's because of that gray area that we kind of aren't sure about, right? So maybe I'll have visiting family or lack of sleep or my migraines. And so we do that because when we're visiting family or we're tired or we're in pain, that's when these things we're set up for the potential of a setback, right? So we need to make sure that we have to take a look, and do I need to move these things in my inner circle, or can I leave them in my middle circle? So I know it's kind of a lot to take in just a few sentences. So I have a downloadable worksheet and a blog post about that you can take a look at if you didn't listen to that or read that one. But that's something that would be in your setback prevention plan. The next thing you want to do is really think about maintaining your routine because your brain went through the setback, but what it's really craving is a routine. It wants to go back to your healthy habits that you had. Even if you've only been sober or, trying to heal for a few days, it still wants to go through those happy, healthy pathways. Apply the KISS method, just keep it simple. Apply, halt and blast, staying hydrated, eating well, sleeping well. It sounds so basic, but my gosh, we're just adding the bricks of your foundation, of your healing and of your recovery, right? Brick by brick. So the more bricks you have, the sturdier your foundation becomes, and the more centered you'll be. We're just getting back to all these things that you did before the setback. Groups, meetings, facial care, meditation, journaling. It's just getting up off the couch, getting out of your pajamas, whatever it is, and moving, right? We want to go back to the routine of things. If things are starting to feel overwhelming, ask yourself, how do you eat an elephant? The answer is one bite at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself, okay? I know that you hear everyone, just saying one day at a time, right? But sometimes it may even be just one moment at a time, right? 1 hour at a time, whatever it takes. Just take it moment by moment if you have to, because there are, in the moments leading up to a setback, there really are pauses. That's why I can't stress grounding techniques enough, because when you have good grounding techniques, you can step out of those moments of the addiction cycle and reach for a grounding technique. And again, please visit my website. And you know what? As I'm talking, I just realized I'm going to go ahead and throw those grounding techniques into my recovery or resource hub. And this way, you guys can have those in there. Just easy to find. But yeah, just take some time, create some SMART goals. And if you're not familiar what SMART goals are, it just means be specific, make it measurable, make it attainable, make it relevant, and make it time specific. It just means don't overwhelm yourself. That you're not, this recovery, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're doing this for the long haul. This is not a race. So there was somebody that I used to have in one of my groups, and she taught me the parable, the frog in the water, that if a frog is placed in boiling water, it will know that it's in danger, right? So it's going to hop out. But if a frog is placed in cool water and then it's gradually heated, it's not going to realize it's in danger until it's too late, right? So you're probably like, okay, that's great, Laura, but what does that have to do with recovery? Well, it's an excellent metaphor for sometimes we can be unaware of like all the risks that are around us because they happen gradually. It's the same thing with setbacks. It's a gradual process. They start with like that slippery slope, those small changes. So be aware of them. Be aware of small changes in your thinking and your behaviors. Watch out for isolation, angry outbursts, those small lies. Are you trying to like cover up small things? Why? Why are you doing these things? Are you starting to romanticize your past use? And watch how they're escalating. So keep an eye out. Make sure you're not the frog in the water. Look for the good. This is my favorite saying, taught to me from my counselor. What is the good? Look for the good. I know this can be a challenge following a setback, but rather than asking yourself, what good is it? Ask yourself, what is the good? This can help you change your mindset towards optimism and positivity. This helps move your mind towards healthier pathways. Don't forget, we're teaching your brain how we're training your brain, right? Retrain your brain. You want to have an attitude of gratitude. That's what helps your brain. So remind yourself you are a constant work in progress. No one is perfect. Focus on how far you've come rather than on how far you have to go. If this is your day 1, your day 10, your day 100, I don't care what day you're on, take a moment to be proud of that, okay? You've made a decision. If this is your day 1, you made a decision to make change. Be proud of that. If this is your like your 100th time trying to do day 10, so what? You've made a decision to keep making forward progress. And remember, you're the one in charge. You're the one in the driver's seat of your recovery. You're the one in charge of your healing. So be proactive instead of reactive. Don't wait for a setback to happen. Don't wait for something terrible to happen. Do the preventative work. Put as many tools in your toolkit as possible. Go to counseling if you need it. If you need to go to inpatient or outpatient treatment, go. There is no shame here. Attend support meetings. Go to group if you need it. Read up on healing. Read up on addiction. Get educated. Go get workbooks. Download the free workbooks that I have or worksheets that I have. Invest as much time in your healing and in your recovery as you did in your addiction. Find passion. Ask yourself what you were passionate about before you started using or before your loved one started using. For me, it was writing and obviously talking, I guess. But it's definitely helping. But what is it for you? Find something you're passionate about. Is it a hobby? What hobby is it that you can pour healthy energy into? Pour your energy into something healthy. You want to keep that energy away from unhealthy behaviors. And be your own cheerleader. Celebrate your wins, all of them, even your small ones. Like I said, if you're coming off a setback, celebrate your days 1, 2, and 3. And remember, every positive step forward is a step forward towards progress. I mean, we don't want setbacks to happen, but they're a part of so many of our journeys. We need to embrace self-compassion and then recommit to our healthy habits again. You are not alone. I am in your corner. I am rooting for you. And never forget, you are a superstar. I know I threw a lot at you, in this episode. I appreciate you for putting up with my iPhone. But please visit my website. I did add that resource hub. I'm going to be updating it constantly with more worksheets and downloadable stuff, so it's easy for you to find everything. And yeah, like I said, don't do this alone. If you are struggling financially, let me know. I can do like a session free of charge. I'm here to help. I'm happy to help you. Thank you so much for stopping by. You can find me at lifecoachlaura.org. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day because you deserve it, my friend.